Hey everyone, Jamie and Adam here for RC Logger.
Hey.
And we're going to get you into what happens in the EyeControl app, which is the app that we have for the NovaX. And we want to encourage you to download it. You can find it, it's on the iOS operating system and also Android, so you can find it in both of those stores. So make sure you go download that. And now we're going to walk you through the process of how to do everything through that app.
Yep.
So here we are, we've got the EyeControl app installed on our smartphone or on our tablet. And again, you can find this on the Android Marketplace or on the iTunes Store. Just search EyeControl and it should come right up. What I'm going to do is I want to walk you through this as though it's the very first time that you've downloaded it and that you're opening it for the first time. So let's go ahead and tap on the app. And when we do that, we're going to see this tutorial guide that will come up for the first time. It's going to walk you through how the app works, kind of the process of what you're going to need to go through when you do this. So just to note here, we're not performing any procedures at this point. We're just walking through the guide of how to use the app. After you've gone through this the first time, the next time that you open it, this will not be there. It'll automatically go to the main home screen. Now when you do a software update, then there's a good chance this will be back. So if you're already familiar with it, you can see at the bottom left hand corner, you can skip through this and you don't have to go through it all the way again. But it's always great to familiarize yourself with it. Also to note that in general settings, you can pull this back up at any point as well to familiarize yourself with how to use the app. So let's just walk through this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we'll spend more time when we get to each actual procedure and walk through it. But this just gives you an overview of how to use the app. The first thing it's noting here is that when starting the app, you have to press the pairing button and you have to connect the app with the NovaX. This is important because without pairing, then you have no communication between your NovaX and the app. And of course, without that, then you cannot perform any calibrations or do any setting changes as well. Let's go to the next screen. You can either hit next at the bottom or you can swipe on your screen as well. Here it's talking about the pairing again, and it's talking about how to perform the pairing procedure using your transmitter. So you will need your transmitter in order to connect with the app, and also we'll need your NovaX at this point too. So we'll get into more of this discussion here in a minute when we're actually performing this procedure, but again, you have to perform pairing first. The next thing it talks about on the next screen as we scroll to it is it talks about the calibration procedures. And here just to note, you have to perform these calibration procedures in order for your NovaX to fly for the first time. If you do not perform these, then it will not fly. So you're going to have to go through each one of these, and we'll walk you through that here in a moment. On the next screen, it's showing you the calibration procedures. There's the gyro, the compass, and the remote control, or initially the learning of your transmitter. And so you must perform these. Let's go to the next screen. Here it's talking about the gyro calibration, and here it's just kind of showing you a general overview of what it's going to look like when you go into the calibration procedure. So here it says, note, follow the diagrams and the app will switch automatically to the next step. So above you is what you're going to see in the app, and it's just telling you to follow what it tells you to do in these calibration procedures. What I want to note here is it talks about it will switch automatically to the next step. What's nice about the app is there's constant communication going on between your NovaX and the app. So when you perform or complete a step, then you don't have to scroll to the next screen on the app. It will automatically advance to the next screen. It will automatically advance to the next step, and it's showing you that through the communication going on between the two. So it's great because it's in real time, meaning that if you've completed it successfully, then it recognizes that and moves to the next step. Here it's talking about the compass calibration, and it's giving you kind of the same thing, just telling you to follow the diagrams. And once the action is completed, the pages will change, supported by a beep. So again, you'll know that you are performing everything correctly as you're seeing that communication happen between the application and the NovaX 350. The next one is the remote system check, and it will walk you through this, and it will give you every detail to the process. And again, just follow the instructions of the app. It says, note, at start, you have the choice of selecting throttle to the right or left stick according to your preference. So if you're a mode 1 or mode 2 flyer, then you can select that before you begin the setup. Here it shows you the customizable flight bank. We have an aerial photography and a sport mode that's already implemented, and then on the third position of channel 6 you can actually set it up to your liking. You can customize everything to how you want it to fly, and also here you can implement the intelligent relative position control, and there you can use that. So we'll get into more details when we get to that. Here it's talking about the flight banks, and there's 7 total that you can customize to your liking and set up how you'd like. On the next screen, it just tells you that only after all settings are made you can save and upload the bank to the NovaX. So we'll go into details of how you do that in the flight bank area, but it's just showing you that you have to make all the setting changes you want, and then you have to save those in order for them to be implemented into position 3 of channel 6. The last thing here is it talks about the setting page, which allows you to restore the factory setting to reboot the NovaX. You can change language from English to German. You can also bring this tutorial guide back up if you want to walk yourself back through it to familiarize yourself. So we're done there, so all we're going to do is hit done or just slide to the next screen, and it's going to bring us to the home screen where it gives us the pairing, calibration, and general settings. So let's walk through this together. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is perform our pairing procedure. The pairing procedure is what causes communication between your NovaX 350 and your application for you to be able to move forward with the next steps. And so I want to explain a few things to you here. First, what you're going to need for the pairing procedure. You're going to need 3 things. You're going to need your NovaX 350, you're going to need a LiPo, and then if you have the ready to fly with a stock transmitter, you're going to need that as well. And so there's 2 different ways of actually performing the pairing procedure, and it's based on whether you have an ARF model or a ready to fly model, and also if you have the very first released units that came out of the factory. We've since changed this, but we'll get into more details about that here in a moment. Let's press on the pairing button, and you'll see this screen comes up. Here it says, when pairing your NovaX 350 for the first time, power on NovaX 350 and remote control. Move aileron to the right and elevator to the top for 10 seconds, and your NovaX 350 will show up on the scan list. The EyeControl app will remember your NovaX 350 afterwards. So first thing that I want to note here is what it's stating at the bottom. Once you perform this pairing procedure, whether it's using the stock transmitter or the method that I'm going to mention in a moment for the other units, then you will no longer have to perform this procedure. It will basically lock in a specific code for your NovaX 350. And so the reason we did this is, say you're out flying with a friend, you don't want to get on your app and be meaning to make changes to your NovaX and actually be making changes to theirs. And so this is a safety feature to make sure that the communications that are happening are between your NovaX 350 and your app. And so we're going to talk about this pairing procedure now, and the first thing I want to talk about is if you do have a ready to fly unit and you have one that was later released from the factory, then this procedure will work just as it says to do here, is pulling the stick over to the right and holding it up and holding it there. Now something I want to mention, it says to hold it there for 10 seconds until it shows up on the scan list. But I want to recommend, just to make sure that communication goes all the way through, and we'll show this when we're doing this pairing procedure, that you go in and hold that stick all the way through the process. Don't let go once it shows up. Just continue to hold it until the pairing is 100% complete. And this ensures that you will actually be paired and it not just give you kind of a acting like it's paired but then not showing up as paired. So that's just something to note. Hold that all the way through. Now if you have an ARF version and you're going to be using your own aftermarket transmitter, or if you have one of the very first ones released from the factory, then this method will not work. And the reason being is because the transmitter hasn't been set up yet, and so it can't read or understand this communication of the stick yet. So in order to perform the procedure of pairing, if you have the ARF version or one of the first released models, then you're actually going to need to carefully remove your canopy from your NovaX 350, and you're going to need to just tap on a button. You'll have to obviously power up the NovaX 350, and then you're going to have to just tap on, there's a small button that you can find on the main PCB of the NovaX 350, and you'll need to do that when it's in the pairing mode, and at that point it will show up then when it's searching for your NovaX 350. So we'll showcase that as well when we go into this pairing procedure. But I just thought these are some important things to note before we go into the pairing procedure. Alright, so now we're actually ready to move on to the pairing procedure. We've got our NovaX 350 powered up with a LiPo, and we're now going to turn our transmitter on. We're going to wait for it to fully come on. Alright, now that it is on, then we're going to hit the skip button and begin the pairing process. So here you can see that it's scanning for NovaX devices and nothing's showing up. We're going to have to implement some type of communication, and so we're going to do that one of two ways, either by using the transmitter, or if you have an ARF version or a first release from the factory, then you're going to press that button. So here we go. We're going to take the stick as it said, take it over to the right and take it up into the corner, and we're going to hold it there until it shows up as a device. Continue to hold it all the way through, and remember, even after it's brought up that it's shown up, you want to continue to hold the stick in place. So there it is, NovaX 350. We're going to tap select, and remember, continue to hold the stick in position. It's going to say NovaX initialization. When you hear that notification, you can also look at the bottom and see it says Bluetooth connected firmware version 1.0 and name NovaX 350. At this point you can release the stick and you are now paired with your app to your NovaX 350, and you can move on to the next process. Alright, so the next procedures that we need to do is our calibration procedures. You're going to need three things in order to perform these. Number one, your NovaX, a fully charged LiPo installed, and then for the transmitter learning or radio calibration, then you're going to need your transmitter. So let's go on into this menu. We're going to tap on it. Here you'll see there's gyro, compass, and remote control. So you're going to need to perform all three of these before your first flight of the NovaX 350. You can also note that there's a color difference for each one, a green for gyro, magenta for compass, and red for remote control. Your NovaX 350 will actually match the color on the LEDs to let you know that you are in the correct calibration procedure when you're performing this. So the first one we want to perform is the gyro calibration. You'll need your NovaX 350 and a LiPo plugged in. I've already got the LiPo plugged in, and I have the NovaX 350 facing away from me on a flat surface. You will not need your transmitter for this process. So we're going to tap on the gyro button, and it's going to tell us to place the NovaX on a horizontal surface. And as you can see, I have it there and I have it facing away. So let's hit start. Here it says gyro calibration has started. At that point, it gives you a beep indicating that it is red and is in the first sequence, and now it's telling us to rotate the NovaX 180 degrees in yaw. So we're going to do that. Put it 180 degrees from where it was and set it back down. At this point it says EyeControl NovaX gyro calibration successful. So we can hit OK, and it will bring us back to the calibration menu, and we have now successfully completed the gyro calibration. Alright, our next step is our compass calibration, and again all we need for this is our NovaX 350, and again we want it pointing away from us, so we're going to tap on the compass. Here we go, it says place the NovaX on a horizontal surface so that the front is facing away from you. And once again we've got the unit powered up here, and we're going to hit the start button to engage the compass calibration. You'll know you've begun it because you'll get the magenta color and also the beep. So now we're just going to follow the process that it gives us here on the screen. The first thing it says to do is rotate the NovaX with the nose down, nose towards you, nose up, and so on until a single beep. So we're going to do 2 rotations. I'm going to perform them fairly slow because we want to make sure that they are accurate. When we come to the completion of this first step, the unit will beep, and then the screen will advance to the next step. It tells us to rotate the NovaX in a horizontal position 90 degrees to the right, so clockwise. So we're going to do that. We get a beep and we get an advance to the next step, which is to rotate, again left side facing down and towards you, up and away. So we're doing 2 more 360 degree rotations, just with it facing to the right. When we get to this completion, then we'll get our next notification by a beep, and this time it's telling us to rotate the NovaX in yaw 2 times clockwise. So what we're going to do is we're just going to turn it 2 times in a clockwise position. You can also set it down on the table as well and do it that way also, if that will be easier for you. So once we've done that, it will say that the calibration is successful, and we can hit the next button, and we have completed our compass calibration. So the next step is our remote control, or our transmitter. And if you just got done completing the gyro and compass first, then your NovaX is probably already still powered up. And so you can go ahead and leave it powered up because you're still going to need it to be communicating with the app. So now we're going to move into our remote control. So let's tap on that. And here it says make sure that all travel adjust is set to plus or minus 100. Make sure that all trimmings are set to 0. So a few things to note is you want to start with a fresh model. If you're using an ARF version in your own transmitter, make sure that you're setting it up with a fresh model with no mixes in there or anything, that everything is set to stock. And the same with the ready to fly unit. If you have a ready to fly unit, then it should already be set up for you, but we just want to make sure. Also too, it says move throttle to the middle. Well, on our ready to fly version, then it is a spring-loaded throttle, so it's already set to the middle. It's already at mid-stick. However, if you have an ARF version, then you want to make sure you move that throttle to the middle position, because that is how it learns it correctly. So this is a vital piece of information for you to know when performing the calibration. So we're going to move on. Here we go. We need to first turn on the transmitter. So we have our transmitter turned on. We're going to hit the start button. When we do that, then we have a remote system check, and it gives us an option of mode 1 or mode 2. So according to what type of flyer you are, you want to select the appropriate one. I'm a mode 2 flyer, so I'm going to press the yellow select for mode 2. And it says remote calibration is started. The first thing it's going to ask me to do is push throttle to the very bottom and back to the center. So that's what we're going to do, is follow the procedure. Once we've done that, it will give us a beep, and we know we can move on to the next step. Push rudder to the very left and back to the center. So we're going to do that next step. Now it's telling me to push the elevator to the very front and back to the center. And the next step is going to tell us to push the aileron to the very left and back to the center. Now we're moving on to our switches. The first one is a 3-position switch, channel 5. Switch B on the ready to fly transmitter all the way down and back up. The next one is channel 6, which is our flight banks, which is switch C on the ready to fly transmitter. I'm going to move it all the way down and back up. The next one is switch A, all the way to the left. We're going to go down and back up. And then the final one is channel 8 for your gimbal control, which we're going to just adjust around. At this point, you'll hear a double beep, and then you'll hear NovaX remote control calibration successful. We'll hit OK, and at that point it brings you back to the calibration menu, and now your gyro, compass, and remote control are all done and completed, and you are ready for your first flight. So now we want to go back to our main home screen. So in order to do that, we just tap on the back button found in the upper left-hand corner. And here we are, we're back on our main home screen. Now let's take a moment and look at the general settings. In order to do that, we just tap on the general settings tab. Alright, so here we are, we're on the main page of our general settings tab, and we're going to go over flight bank in more detail here in a moment, but first let's scroll down and look at some of the other things that you can find in this section. If you'll notice, first there's a NovaX configuration section, and there's options here to reboot or factory reset the NovaX. So if maybe you're having trouble with calibrations and you want to start all over, you can choose to reboot your unit. Also too, then with the reset, then you can take it back to the way it was when it came out of the box. There's also then a language tab, and you can choose between English or Deutsch there to choose your language. And then there's the About section. It gives you the app version. It also has a Learn More About Us. If you'll click on that, then it will take you to a link to our website, and it will give you more information about us, about our products, and about our vision. And then also the tutorial pages. This is the pages that we discussed at the very beginning of this video. So if you want to refresh yourself on how the app works and how to use it, then you can scroll back through those pages. So now that we have looked through that, let's go back to our flight bank area and let's discuss that. If you notice below the back button, then it says channel 6, and that's in reference to the flight bank. If you have the Ready to Fly NovaX with your stock transmitter, then this is switch B. And if you have the ARF version using your own aftermarket transmitter, then this means you'll need to set up channel 6 on a 3-position switch in order to use all the flight functions that you see here. Let's look at the switch positions together. The first one is switch position 1, which is our aerial photography mode. When you move on the sticks, and this is going to be a lot more docile setting in order to get that smooth shot that you're after, and the unit will not be as aggressive in this mode. In switch position 2, then the angle of attack when you push on the sticks is going to be much more aggressive. So it's going to be a lot more faster, a lot more responsive. And then the next one is switch position 3, which, as you can see right now, there's no inputs given there. And so we need to customize that to set it up to how we want to do that. Before we get into switch position 3, let's first understand what these inputs mean and what will take place with your NovaX 350 when you make changes to these numbers. Let's look below the tap to customize bank, and you'll notice these different inputs. The first is max degree at full stick input, and you'll see for the sport mode then there's 45 degrees, and for the aerial photography there's 20 degrees. And so this kind of gives a better explanation of earlier what I talked about, how docile or agile it is. Obviously in sport, when you give it full stick input, it has the ability to go up to a 45-degree angle, which is going to make it much more agile, whereas aerial photography, it will max out at 20 degrees, which makes it much more docile. The next thing is the max rotation in yaw. This is how quickly it will spin when you are yawing to the left or to the right. You'll notice it's at 200 for sport and then 120 for aerial photography. And so you can set this to your liking as well and how quickly you want it to turn when you are using your yaw. The next part is mid-stick deadband. This is essentially the same as expo on your transmitter. So where your center stick is, when you move it, when it's at 0.1, then it's going to be very responsive around that. If you take that to a larger number, then it will be less responsive at that mid-stick around there. So when you give input, then if you have a higher number, then it will be less sensitive, whereas at a lower number, it will be more sensitive. The next part is max climb rate in mid-stick. And this is when you're in mid-stick mode, how quickly the unit will climb when you give it throttle straight up. And so you can see in sport mode it climbs quite a bit more quickly, whereas aerial photography, once again, it's more docile to make it more manageable for shooting video. And then the final function is slow down ACC, or slow down accelerometer. And this has effect on your NovaX on how quickly it comes into the hold position when you're flying in GPS mode. So if you have it set at 4.0, then it's going to lock into hold a lot quicker. Or if you use a lesser number like 1.0, then it will gradually move forward and come into hold at a further away position. The reason this is important is maybe if you're in aerial photography and you're wanting to get a slower lock into position so that the shot's not so abrupt when it stops, then you can use a lower number. So anyway, so that gives you an overview of all the different inputs that you can change here, and you can set this up and customize it to your liking to get the flight performance that you are after. So now that we have a better understanding of what these different inputs mean and how changing the numbers can have effect on the flight characteristics of our NovaX 350, then we're ready to customize this bank. Now something I want to mention is obviously that we need to have our NovaX 350 powered on, and that it needs to be paired to the application, because if it's not, then you will not be able to save the changes and them hold and take place on your NovaX 350. So make sure that you are powered on and paired before we go into the customized bank to be able to save the changes. Alright, so let's go ahead now and let's tap on switch position 3 where it says tap to customize bank. So here we are now, we're in our flight bank section, and we can now customize our different banks. As you can see, you can scroll through the pages and you can set up to a total of 7, and then you can upload those different ones for the different settings you want. So, but let's walk through how we want to perform this procedure. The first thing we're going to want to do is customize the bank to rename it. So let's click on Customize Bank, Rename, and we can set this as Test 1. Or whatever it is that you want to call it. Maybe you want to call it Aerial 2, or however you want to name it, Custom 2, whatever you want to do. We're going to hit OK. As you can see now, it has a name. Also too, now the next thing you want to note is where it says Normal below Test 1. Here, if you actually tap on this, you can switch over to Intelligent Relative Position Control, or as we call it for short, IRPC. And this is the flight mode that allows you to control the unit no matter which direction it's facing. Then you can use the sticks to control it. If you pull it towards you, it's always going to come towards you. If you push it away, it's always going to go away no matter what the position the nose of the NovaX is facing in. And so I encourage you to watch our video explaining more on Intelligent Relative Position Control, as this is a great feature and function to use, especially if this is your first time flying. It might make more sense to you to fly in this mode versus normal flight mode. So again, pressing this button will allow you to switch between those two. Next, we can go down and we can make the changes of the different numerical changes we want to make in these settings. So let's look at max degrees at full stick input. We're going to tap on the little darker gray box with the white dots in there. And here now we can adjust the angle. So you can scroll up and down to choose the numbers that you want. Let's set this at, let's say 27. Then we just tap OK, and as you can see, that's been saved. Next is max rotation in yaw, 120 all the way up to what's the same as sport mode, which is 200. I'm going to set there. I always like a little higher yaw, but again, you can set it to whatever your preference is. Next is the max climb rate in mid stick. 150 is the lower bottom of that, and then you can set it up even higher, all the way up to 300. I'm sorry, up to 300 is the max that you can go. And so let's set this at let's say 257. I'm just throwing random numbers out here just to give you an idea of how this works. Mid stick deadbed, and again, it's kind of the same as expo on your sticks. So if you make it up to 0.3, then it's going to be less sensitive around mid stick, and then if you put it at 0.1, it's going to be more sensitive. So I like it more sensitive to that input, so I'm putting it at 0.1. And then the slowdown ACC, which again is how far your unit travels when in GPS mode and you let off the stick. If you go with a higher number, then it's going to slow down at a faster rate. Or if you put it at 1.0, then it's going to travel further before locking in place, which is good for aerial video. So I'm going to put it somewhere towards the middle. Let's do 2.5, and we're going to hit OK. Now what you can see is once you have named it, once you have chosen either normal or IRPC, and then once you have put input for each individual setting, then you have a save button that pops up. And you have to make changes to everything in order for this to pop up, so that it knows that you have everything implemented that you need. So we're going to tap save. And at this point, then you see where save was. Now you can hit edit if you want to go back in and edit any of these changes. If not, you can hit upload. We're going to tap upload now. So let's do that. What's going to happen is it's going to bring us back to this screen. In just a moment, you're going to see switch position 3 change, just like you did there. And now it says test 1, and it has all the inputs that we just put there. And so we now have our own customized setup for switch position 3 of channel 6. And again, you can go back in here and scroll through and change each one and set it up how you want. That way you always have customized banks on the go, ready to go for the settings that you want. So if you have multiple needs or uses of the NovaX, you're not having to spend a lot of time retuning it, but you can get up and flying very quick for how you want it. So anyway, that's it. That's essentially everything here in the General Settings tab, explaining your flight banks and the rest of it as well. Let's go back to the home screen. So I think that covers everything for the EyeControl application. We've discussed the pairing procedure. We've talked about calibrations that need to be performed in order for your first flight to occur. We've talked about our general settings, and we've looked at how to set up our customizable flight bank on channel 6. As we implement new and exciting features into the NovaX 350, then we'll also be updating the app to work with those features. So expect more videos to come showcasing how to use the new things that are added to the app along the way. So we want to thank you for tuning into this, and we're excited to offer the NovaX 350 along with the EyeControl app so that you can quickly set up and get your NovaX ready to fly and make customized settings right on the go. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to visit us at rclogger.com. We have a great support forum there, and we would love to answer any questions that you have. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.